here's up.
Okay, that's working. Okay.
Ding ding.
So we're going to talk about romance and marriage.
Okay.
Oh boy. That's a real good subject.
How did you meet?
Let's see. It was through Keaton Herald. No, that was before. Through Ed. He came out that he was going with Lorna. And that was when the first time
And
met
she
him.
was sitting at the kitchen table with overalls on, and she one knee up. She was holding on to her knee.
Okay.
That I was the city kid. You know,
He was up visiting that time. I don't think he was working for the cheese factory at that time.
I was.
Oh, okay.
And tell us about how Uncle Ed and you are related.
Uncle Ed is my cousin. That my aunt was my mother's aunt, because she was a Zerbil, and my mother was a Zerbil daughter, or daughter of. Let's see how we go there. Schreider, my Mabel and Ruth were sisters, Schreider girls.
Okay.
And Mabel was my mother's mother
Your grandma.
and grandma, and Ruth was one of the Schreider girls, so that made her an aunt of my mother.
Okay. So there was quite an age difference in the sisters too, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Okay.
That was like,
And do you remember how many kids were in that family?
oh boy. There was
There was half sisters.
there was Bill and Phil and Mabel and Ruth. Then there was another one that died during birth. I don't know about her.
Elma,
Oh.
I think it was.
Okay, so let's go back. What do you recall about your first date? Do you remember your first date?
Not really.
No,
Okay. So you met, and how did you end up together?
We were party in the wedding of Ed and Lorna.
yeah.
When Ed and Lorna got married, we were bridegroom and groom man, or whatever they call it. I was best man for Ed, and she was one of the girls for
Maid of honor.
maid of honor for Lorna.
Okay. And did you have other people in your lives before that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So-
Both. Well, we won't get into that.
Oh yeah, tell me about it.
I went with a girl that I met at her birthday party, and she went to St. Catherine's, and I was at Horling, but we went for a while together.
Okay. So.
And she was somehow related to Ben Foley. Her name was Foley,
Foley, okay.
and she was somehow related to Ben Foley.
And at that time, did you think she was the one?
I didn't know, and didn't think about it.
Okay. All right. And Mom, how about
I
you?
met him in high school. And him and Ed used to chum around together. And when Ed had a car, and so it made it very convenient. So we always went together then, Lorna and Ed. And,
Ollie.
well,
Boy.
He remembers.
he remembered. And
So,
that's,
so, okay. So how did you know you were really in love?
how does anybody really know?
Okay.
You know?
Well, you decided.
It's different things that you do together, and likes and dislikes of different things.
Well, she was living with Harold and Kate. And I was at home.
Yeah.
Now, I can't remember. I think I was going to UWR, Machine Extension Division at that time. So,
Yeah. And you was going with Donna at the time too.
I
That,
think, yeah.
So that, you know, we both was going with somebody at the time, and so we just
Waited for a while.
waited and
Then how did you end up dating though? Obviously, at some point you decided that you were going to date each other.
well,
rather than
Lorna and
both.
Ed was married then. Well, we were going together before that too. That, I guess we both broke it off and just seemed to like one another and like doing what both did, and just seemed to come together.
Okay.
That's okay.
What?
I agree with it.
Okay. Okay, tell me how you popped the question or how it was popped to you.
Okay, I'll answer that one. Because his isn't accurate, the one he tells all the time. He asked me to marry him, and I said, when? And he said, after I graduate from college. And I said, why do we have to wait that long?
So she proposed to me.
Yeah, that's what he always says. That's what he always says.
So,
Or the kids are going to get banged out of this.
okay, tell me about your wedding ceremony. What year, where, how many attended?
Men don't remember that kind of stuff.
We had the minister, I think his name was Healy from Butternut, because the minister that Byfield had, he was on vacation and he wasn't gonna do anything while he was on vacation. He wasn't too well liked. So we had him from Butternut, and it was August 30th, 1958, and I had my two sisters stood up for him because the oldest one was pregnant with the first child of hers. So it was Lorna and Jean. Lorna was with Ed, and Jean was with my brother Leonard. And now,
How many people attended?
just the two that we had, the two sisters.
Okay, and what about your reception?
And the reception was held in the church. I think it was 4 o'clock, something in the afternoon. The ladies' aid put it on.
In Fifield
In
basement?
Fifield Church.
Is it the church that's still standing there?
Yep, the church is still there, and I don't know how long it'll keep going, but it's still there
Okay.
on now.
And what did you do for a honeymoon?
We went
Oh, I'll let him tell that
we
one.
were at Metz's. We were Butternut Lake. There was a place called Metz's, and we had a room there. At that resort, it was a separate
Cabin.
cabin. So that was our honeymoon.
Okay.
But we had called my mom and dad, and they made the arrangements for us. They knew where we were going, but nobody else did.
See, at
Oh, okay.
that time, they would hide the bride, and then the groom would have to go from tavern to tavern and find the bride. And by the time he found the bride, he wasn't really aware of it. So, in order not to have the bride get kidnapped, they made arrangements.
Okay. They whisked you away before somebody else could take you.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Tell me about starting your family.
What was that?
Starting your family. Tell us about starting your family. So that would be me.
We were
We-
married, all the time I was at Marquette.
No.
But what happened is we got married, and I worked for the machine, and she worked for Alice Chalmers. I worked for a company called Moore Specialty, and I'd have to drive down the machine every day. So she worked in
West
Well,
Dallas.
West Dallas, I worked in machine. So somehow, let's see, I was have to make dinner for her, and then she'd come home at noon. So I worked with machine there, and everything worked out fine until I got a letter from Uncle Sam, and we were married, and Uncle Sam said I could use you more than she could. So at that point, we had to go back. I had to go back to school because they had what they call an S2 deferment. That if you were going to school, they would draft you. So at that time, the University of Wisconsin was on the semester system. So this semester had started, so I couldn't go back to Wisconsin. But Marquette was on the quarter system, and the last quarter was still available. So that was how I switched to went to Marquette. Well, then I got my bachelor's degree at Marquette, and then I also got a master's degree at Marquette. And the professor I was working for was alumni of Northwestern. So he called his professor and said, well, you're going down there. Well, that was a good deal because the Navy, my professor he had Navy contracts. And so I was supported under Navy contracts. So we moved to Evanston. Now she had to spend her time going to Evanston to try to find us a house. Well, she went to Quinlan and Tyson Quinlan was the name of it.
Yeah.
She got this apartment, and it was about half again as much rent as we were paying in West Dallas. I think we were paying $80 a month for rent in West Dallas, and this was $130. And the situation was on the third floor, and no parking, so you had to park on the street. So the first night we moved down to Evanston, I got a parking ticket. So I was a citizen of Evanston from day one. So, but
Moved into the apartment that day, and
they heat it with coal. And so at that time, coal pollution, the walls were just black. But we found an eraser. You could erase that off. So before we moved in, we had to clean all the walls to make them livable. But then I was going to Northwestern, and she was pregnant at the time. And so she had insurance from Alice Chalmers, but I have a student health care too. So that was kind of lucky for us because when she went to the hospital, we collected on 2 different insurances. And at that time, that meant a lot to us because we were living pretty close to the border. So that was when you were born, and you were born in Evanston Hospital. So
Dr. West.
But you were her pride and joy until one day you had a tricycle, and you decided to ride the tricycle down the steps. And so, right in the middle, your two front teeth were gone.
That was on Mother's Day on top of it.
So,
They were baby teeth.
yeah.
So, okay, tell me the story of moving from Milwaukee to Evanston.
Oh gosh, that was terrible. To being on third floor and climbing those steps every day, being pregnant, it was, and you had to leave all your friends, and
So she had to do the wash down in the basement. And her folks bought us a washer in Evanston. So down in the basement she had her own washer. So rather than carry the soap back and forth every time with all the clothes and new and so on, she'd leave her soap down in the by the wash machine, and somebody would continually take her soap, and it would be gone. And at that time, she was using Blue Cheer. So when we left Evanston, I went out and bought 2 boxes of Blue Writ, a dime, and mixed it in with the Blue Cheer. And we left that box of soap down in the basement. And it always gives me kind of a little bit of satisfaction to remember that we left the Blue Writ in the box of Cheer down in the basement. So whoever was taking that soap all the time had the bluest washing towel.
that's where we met Aunt Phyllis,
Mm-hmm.
who was down in the laundry room.
And she used to babysit for
Yeah.
you all the time.
Yeah, she just loved kids. She was never married.
Well, she made a good babysitter.
Yep.
That's,
Okay, tell me the story of deciding to become a professor and moving to Milwaukee.
well, I got a PhD down at Northwestern. And the night I finished my exam, so to get my PhD, we decided to go and have a nice dinner. And we went to this restaurant, and I think it was the lousiest meal I ever had in my life. It was terrible.
But
But
sure,
that,
the
that
steak.
was a celebration. But when we moved to Evanston, there was another person that was chairman or professor at Marquette in the dental department, dental materials.
Okay.
Carl Fergers was his name. So he rented a room for us in Evanston, so that way we could afford the apartment we were in. So when we moved back to, when I got my PhD, I interviewed at a number of places. One time at Bell Labs out in New Jersey. There's a place down in the south part of Chicago was terrible. But then, knowing the people from Marquette, that they wanted me to come back. So we took that belt, and we had to get an advance on my pay to afford the move back to Milwaukee.
Because we only had $26 left in the checking account to our name.
And we rented an apartment off Custer Street, and that was a unit by itself. There was 3 units together, and we lived in one. And there was a colonel from the Marines that lived next to us. And we'll tell you a story about you. He was kind of a fan of the miniature trees and so on. We call them
Bonsai.
Oh, bonsai.
bonsai. And he had grown an orange tree, and it had these nice little oranges on, and it was out by his back steps. And guess who took
Picked all
and
the
harvested the oranges? It was little Melissa. So, but she was recruiting officer for Upper
Marines.
Illinois and South part of Wisconsin. So every Christmas she'd have things flown in, like oysters and all sorts of good food, and he'd have to entertain all the people that were under him. So when I come home from school, I wouldn't even get in the house. She'd invite me over to join the party. So by the time I did get back to the house, I was feeling pretty good all the time. He was a very interesting person. He collected cooey shells. Cooey, he had a collection from all over the world. So, and
I thought you weren't friends after I picked his oranges.
Oh, he said he thought about that when he set it out there. But he thought, well, if it happens, it happens. They weren't upset about it
Okay.
because they had a daughter too.
But they moved out to Quantico, Virginia. We went out to Washington one time. We were going to visit them, and they had some friends, Floyd and Marie. Floyd and Marie were not. They were both married, but not with one another. So anyway, we spent some time with Floyd and Marie. We went to set up the set lines with Floyd, and we had to have everybody had to have their bean soup. It was always kind of a thing out Quantico, Virginia there. All the people had their special meal. So, and I had taken a whole roll of film, beautiful pictures of the azalea at the time, was in season when I was out there. So when I got back from Milwaukee, I took the film to, I think it was Walgreens, and
Walgreens,
it had development. It lost the whole film of all those beautiful pictures of azalea. But they gave me another roll of film. A new roll of film because they lost
Never
the
did
one.
find it.
Yep.
Never did find it, so.
Okay. We'll do this again tomorrow.
Okay.